Minister Lecce, we welcome you back to our school.
Thank you.
Our students, parish, and community have gotten to know you well since you became Minister of Education, especially since Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine, which began in February of 2022. I want everyone here to understand the leadership role you personally played in making sure that the children who came from Ukraine could learn safely and get settled quickly into Ontario's school system. In fact, the very next day after Russia invaded, you called me to ask me what you could do as minister. So thank you for that. Not only to support our students here, who would of course have some trauma and mental health needs, but also to assure us that any children who came to seek safe refuge here in Ontario would be welcomed in our school. And they did come. To our school alone, we have welcomed over 200 students from Ukraine, almost doubling our school population in a year. This presents many challenges, but also opportunities. I want to thank you, Minister Lecce, Premier Ford, MPP Surma, for supporting us at the provincial level. I want to thank our board, our parish, and our community for supporting us with programming and financial support. But really, I want to highlight our extraordinary teachers and staff who continue today to go above and beyond to support the needs of our new students, but also to support the continued needs of our existing students who, just coming out of COVID, were thrown yet another curveball. I could never have imagined the ways in which our teachers and staff have stepped up and continue to step up on a daily basis. So allow me to publicly say thank you. Every day, my heart is overwhelmed with gratitude for our amazing, generous teachers and staff. But today, we're here to hear from you, Minister Lecce, about a significant announcement that you will have a lasting impact not only on our Ukrainian community, but also on all students in Ontario. As an educator, I can tell you that outside of the Ukrainian community, not too many people know about the Holodomor, one of the biggest genocides of mankind that happened 90 years ago in Ukraine. One of the lessons coming out of the Holocaust, the talk is never again. With the Holodomor, a genocide against Ukraine, never again is indeed happening again. To all of you, thank you. Thank you for being here, and thank you for all that you do to work for our community. And now I would like to turn the mic over to our trustee, Markus de Domenico, for a few words.
Good morning, everyone. Today we're here at St. Demetrius School to commemorate and raise awareness of the horrific events of the Holodomor. I'm pleased to introduce our special guests to Ward 2 at Etobicoke Centre. We have the Honourable Stephen Lecce, Minister of Education, the Honourable Christine Hogarth, MPP for Etobicoke Lakeshore, and the Honourable Natalia Kuzendova-Bashta, MPP for Mississauga Centre. St. Demetrius is known for its large Eastern Rite Ukrainian student population. The school community has been through devastating trauma over the last 2 years as the war rages on back home in Ukraine. The difficulties have only made our community stronger and more resilient. We will never give up, and we will never give in. Every time I visit this amazing school and speak to staff, students, clergy, and families, I am reminded of the strength and resilience of the Ukrainian community. Principal Hordienko and her team have created a welcoming learning environment where our TCDSB students, both new and existing, understand that they belong, that they are safe, and they are always accepted. Continuing to recognize the Holodomor helps to ensure that the tragic Stalinist Soviet persecution and genocide of Ukrainians will never be forgotten. I'd now like to welcome a great friend of this community, a great supporter of this community, the Honourable Minister of Education, Stephen Lecce.
Well, thank you so much, Marcus. I appreciate the welcome. I want to give a warm shout out to my parliamentary colleagues, Natalia Kuzendova-Bashta, who's with us, as well as Christine Hogarth. All of us are so committed to the cause of remembrance. And I want to thank our amazing principal here at St. Demetrius, Lily. Thank you for not just your leadership at this school, but your leadership in the country on behalf of free people, the Ukrainian families, and the kids who have come to this community, come to this school with open arms. And this reminds me of why I'm proud to be a Canadian. The fact that people facing some of the greatest difficulty in war and division can seek refuge in this amazing country, and that we have staff who went above and beyond every single day. I've been here many times. I know this library very well, and having seen these kids in the first days upon their arrival to Canada fleeing war, the darkness and despair, the sense of sadness that often their fathers or some of their parents may have been back home in the fight for freedom. To see these kids smile again, to see them have hope, to have love, to have safety and freedom is honestly, it is our why as parliamentarians. It's to give that type of opportunity and dignity to these kids. So thank you for all that you do, for your teachers, your staff, the parents, the volunteers. This is a beautiful community, and I'm very proud to be a part of it today. And of course, thank you to all the guests, the Consul General, to the amazing community leaders. This is the best of Canada-Ukrainian community in one room today. Wonderful people who have dedicated their lives to the advancement of our values of democracy and freedom. And we're here on the 90th anniversary of the Holodomor, and we pay tribute to the millions of people who died by starvation due to the hands of an extreme, brutal ideology of communism under the administration of dictator Joseph Stalin. This terror famine against the Ukrainian people was an act of genocide, and it is our duty as Canadians to ensure we remember it. And as our principal said, I'm not sure, and I would agree, that many non-Ukrainians truly understand the scale of barbarity that took place against Ukrainian people, free people, children, innocent lives that simply wanted to carry on with the sense of opportunity that we have in this country. It was a deliberate act caused by the brutal collectivization of private farms and the extreme Marxist-Leninist ideology of Soviet dictator Joseph Stalin. And we know that millions of people, 7 million people, perished at the hands of extremism, at communism, because the world was ill-prepared to act. We must learn, I think, today that we cannot be bystanders when we see evil take place. We cannot allow this type of destruction to human dignity. And we have an obligation as citizens of the world, and yes, as citizens of this country, to stand up, to speak up, and to denounce this form of evil that truly took place then and carries on today in the ongoing illegal war in Ukraine by the current dictator of Russia, Vladimir Putin. And so, thankfully, this once, quote, mighty evil empire collapsed over 30 years ago, and we know that Marxist-Leninism, communism, has been discarded and discredited throughout the world. But today we have an obligation to stand up for our values. As Canadians, the values that unite us for freedom, for democracy, for human rights and human dignity for every single person. That is the moral obligation we have as free people living in the best country on earth. And so to stand up for our values in the denouncement of barbarity, to stand up for democracy and to educate young people on the perils of communism and extreme ideology that undermines the human dignity of every single person. Today, I am very proud to announce that Ontario will mandate, for the first time in our country's history, mandatory learning on the Holodomor within Ontario's curriculum, so that all kids learn from history to never be bystanders in the face of evil. We will educate young people on the perils of communism and the extreme ideology that has plagued so many people then and still today. And we will educate young people about the civic duty as Canadians, as we just learned on the amazing Holodomor bus, of disinformation and misinformation, the propaganda that was advanced then and now by the evil empire. This is learning that will safeguard our democracy. It will ensure we remain a free society. And learning about the Holodomor is an amazing opportunity for young people to appreciate that this was 90 years ago. And in the room today, we have Holodomor survivors. And so we owe it to them in the torch of remembrance that in you, the young people who are with us today, that their memories, their stories will carry on in your hearts, in our minds. And I have a great sense of optimism what is possible through education. It is the greatest weapon against hate. And as I said on Saturday at the Holodomor Memorial, no bullet, no missile, no invasion will ever pierce the fighting spirit of the Ukrainian people. So we stand with you, now and always. Now, the Canada-Ukraine Foundation has the amazing Holodomor Awareness Bus. I was just on that bus with these young kids asking some very inquisitive, tough questions. And I want to say that this bus is providing knowledge and education for thousands of kids. And our government is proud today to announce a $400,000 investment to continue to ensure that bus gets into the most remote parts of Ontario so that all kids, particularly non-Ukrainian kids, learn about the Holodomor in an interactive way, in an age-appropriate way that instills values that unite us, that strengthens our democratic norms, that helps young people understand that they too, on an individual basis, every young kid could play a role against evil, against bullying, and against division and hate. And so we're proud to fund this amazing mobile classroom to support thousands of kids across Ontario. We're proud to dedicate curriculum, mandatory learning on the Holodomor. We're proud to stand up for our values as Canadians in defense of democracy over tyranny. And we are proud today to reaffirm our commitments to a free Ukraine, a Ukraine where their sovereignty and your security and your future is entirely in your hands. And so we stand with you now and always for freedom to prevail. And I just want to express my ultimate gratitude to the people of Ukraine, in this country, Ukrainian Canadians, who have demonstrated why they have the resilience and the determination to never give up. So, Slava Ukraini. Thank you so much. I now have the distinct honor of introducing Victor Hetmanczuk, who is the chair of the Canada-Ukrainian Foundation and someone who has dedicated his life to the remembrance on Holodomor. Thank you, sir, for your leadership.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. We've just heard Minister Lecce announce that the Ontario government has mandated the study of the 1932-1933 Holodomor, a man-made famine orchestrated by the Soviet regime in Ukraine 90 years ago, to be included in the Grade 10 Canadian History course beginning in September of 2025. This is momentous news for the Ukrainian Canadian community that has lobbied tirelessly to make this brutal campaign of Joseph Stalin against Ukrainian identity and existence that has claimed millions of lives known to the world. Canada was the first country in the world in 2008 to recognize Holodomor as genocide of Ukrainians. Today, 55 countries have done the same. It is our belief that the curriculum will ensure that our youth will learn about the adverse consequences of extreme political ideologies like those of totalitarian communist regimes. On behalf of the Canada-Ukraine Foundation, I am deeply grateful to the Government of Ontario for announcing $400,000 in support of the continuation of the Holodomor National Awareness Tour and the Holodomor Mobile Classroom, which will reinforce the curriculum. Since 2014, the bus has gone from Vancouver Island to Newfoundland. We have had 70,000 people come through the bus, and we've lectured to 500 schools. It has been a real journey, and it will now be able to continue on because of the generous donation from the government. So today's announcement ensures that students will learn about the concealed unknown chapter in Ukrainian history, and that they will continue to embrace and value democracy, freedom, human rights, and the rule of law that Canada holds in highest regard. Thank you. It's now my pleasure to introduce the Consul General of Ukraine in Toronto, Oleksandr Shevchenko.
Honorable Minister Stephen Lecce, Honorable MPPs Christine Hogarth and Natalia Kusindova, professors and students of St. Demetrius School, ladies and gentlemen. These days, the last decade of November, is special for Ukrainian all across the world as we honor the memory of millions of innocent victims of Holodomor who were starved to death by Kremlin's regime. Through the Great Famine, masterminded and executed by Kremlin, the Stalin's regime intended to punish and to oppress Ukrainians who didn't accept the Bolsheviks' rule, who didn't accept the Soviets' collective farms, and who wanted to work on their land, to cultivate this land, and who wanted to preserve their language, their faith, their culture, and their identity. Children, women, elderly men, tortured by artificially created famine, were dying in huge numbers daily. For decades, the truth about this horrible crime against Ukrainian people was shamefully silenced. In times when the words famine and the Holodomor were prohibited, mentioned by Soviet system, Ukrainians in Canada were keeping memories about this horrible period in the history of Ukraine. Through numerous publications, books, and scientific researches, they were telling the truth to the Canadian society and to the whole world. Ukrainians of Canada erected monuments in Alberta, Manitoba, and here in Toronto as a reminder to all of us about this horrible Ukrainian tragedy. They launched the Holodomor Awareness Tour. As we remember, Canada officially recognized Holodomor as a genocide of the Ukrainian people in 2008. This decision was followed by the Parliament of Ontario resolution in April 2009, recognizing the Holodomor as an act of genocide and provided for the declaration of Holodomor Memorial Day on the fourth Saturday in November, in each year in the province of Ontario. We are grateful to Canada and the province of Ontario for that. Today we are honored and privileged to be the witness of yet another historic decision by the government of the province, ensuring mandatory teaching of the Holodomor during Holodomor Awareness Week. For the first time in Ontario history, and in the history of Canada, I think, and renewal of funding for the Holodomor Awareness Tour. It gives us hope that the memory of the Holodomor will not fade and will be carefully passed on to the next generations. A big thank you, Ontario, for that from Ukrainians. Glory to Ukraine, glory to Canada. Thank you.
And I can think of no better fitting way to close this gathering than to invite Mykola Latishko, the survivor of Holodomor, for a few words to the audience. Proszę pana Mykola.
Ladies and gentlemen, I got a question not about the Holodomor, because you know it all about it. I've survived, but millions did not. And it is at this time that the Canadians of Ukrainian background commemorate all those millions. There are a lot of books, there are a lot of witnesses, there are a lot of information, authentic information from Soviet Union in Moscow and Kyiv, etc. So those who are interested can find all the information about Holodomor. Very seldom, or I would say very little, is mentioned that not all people in Ukraine were hungry. There were those who would make others hungry. Commissars, members of Communist Party, they had food. And so-called Turksine, you could get your food for gold, for silver, for diamonds if you had. But those who work on land, farmers, where would they get their gold or anything else? It's just a statement that those who planned and promoted and actually made artificial hunger. We didn't have the right even then to say Holodomor or genocide. There were no such words. But eventually, a little by little, from witnesses, from documents, from research, from demagogues, etc., the truth came out. But my question is closer to home. Education Minister that we had, we met before, so I know it. Nowadays, everything is online. Education is online. Medication is online. Banks are online. My question is, will the students of medicine will also become doctors online without seeing or operating on people or animals? There are a lot of complaints that our health is going, in Ontario, going down. There are problems in the hospitals, nurses, doctors, etc. Is it because everything is online? Are there any changes in the near future that the children will have a chance to meet the teacher, not online? That's closer to home question. If you can answer, please do.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you very much. I think the beauty of our tour bus is that it's going to bring the Holodomor, the stories of people before us to life through using interactive technology, videos, and their original testimonies so that they do not fade into history. And I think in person, online, every means possible to educate, to inspire young people to be part of change, to be a force for good, to stand up against evil is our legacy to the victims of the Holodomor. So thank you so much, sir, for your leadership and for inspiring us all today. We really appreciate what you do. Thank you. Okay.
Your outlet, just a reminder, it's one question, one follow-up for question.
Good morning.
Hi, good morning, Minister. Thanks for taking our questions. Sneh Dougal with the Trillium. My questions today are about childcare projects that have been approved for schools in various boards several years ago that haven't been built yet. Your government recently offered these boards a final 25% in additional funding. We've now heard from 3 boards, both the public and Catholic boards in Toronto. They say that the funding doesn't come close to what's needed. The Catholic board said they'd have to cut funding to student learning. The Peel board said it can't come up with the money. The TDSB said even if the government funded all 28 of its pending projects with an additional 25%, they'd still need another 100 million for these projects. You've told these boards, or your government's told the boards, that the ministry is eager to explore alternate arrangements. I'm wondering if you can elaborate on what that means. If these projects don't go ahead, who gets the funding? Is it the private sector? Are you looking at cheaper options for the government to build these childcare spaces?
Yeah, so thank you for the question today. Childcare expansion is very important to the government. I mean, we appreciate that for a long time, many families could not find a childcare space, and it was incredibly unaffordable to working people. It increased by 400% before we came to power. So we know that we've got to do more in this respect, and so we've committed ourselves to build 86,000 spaces. Toronto will be receiving a significant portion of net new spaces, I believe around 10,000 additional spaces for the people of Toronto alone. Now, these specific projects you mentioned, of the 28 projects, 27 of them are 5 years plus old. None of them have started construction. Some of them go back 7-8 years. So the time it is taking to get these projects online, in many cases, like literally almost all of them preceding the time our government was even elected, that time has now led to massive inflationary increases. So yes, we have offered a 25% additional premium to see if this could help school boards get to the finish line of building those spaces. But one way or another, we're going to be building more spaces for the families of Toronto and frankly the province of Ontario. And what we've sort of indicated to the school boards is we're willing to work with them. Those dollars for childcare will remain within the childcare portfolio, and they'll be used for public purposes, be it in schools or other supports to expand affordable spaces. So we're willing to work in good faith with them to get to a suitable outcome, but we also have a duty to protect the tax dollars. And when a project hasn't come online for, in some cases, for 7-8 years, and it's now 100, 200, 300% more than where we started, I think taxpayers would like us to demonstrate some responsibility for their dollars, for their contribution. So we're achieving that balance by providing additional top-up of 25% in addition to what we already increased over the course of those projects as they've been in the pipeline. So I think the message you're hearing from me is a willingness to work with our school boards and a commitment, regardless if they proceed or not, to build more spaces for Toronto families, more affordable childcare spaces for working people in the city.
Thank you. And I mean, for these three boards, at this point, this issue kind of potentially puts thousands of these spaces within schools at risk. So I'm just wondering, I mean, what do you say to these communities that essentially just want to see these spaces built in their schools and don't really get why the government isn't putting more funding into them just to get them built?
Well, we're actually building 10,000 new spaces within schools, childcare spaces within schools. We're on track to doing that. That's been a wonderful expansion. It makes it a bit easier for a parent to drop off their children in a co-located facility like elementary school. They drop off their kid in elementary school, maybe one of the younger child in child care. So that co-location has been a strength. We're building many schools in Ontario. Beyond these 28, there are literally hundreds that have approval to build childcare expansion since 2018. We're going to keep doing that to make life affordable. But at the end of the day, if we can increase spaces in their community, it may be at the plaza across the street from St. Demetrius or in St. Demetrius, but as long as we're adding affordable capacity to communities to reduce the wait list and help parents get access to affordable childcare, I think we are achieving our objective, and we're doing so in a fiscally responsible manner. Thank you.
Hi, Linda Ward from CBC. I'm sure there are teachers in here who could say that, you know, it's a struggle every year to complete the curriculum in its entirety. The same goes for high school curriculum. I'm wondering what will be removed from the grade 10 history curriculum in order to be able to give this ample time?
You know what, we're adding this as a new mandatory expectation. The curriculum that will be developed is going to take into account that there's limited time in a day, but we do believe this is a priority. And kids need to learn about their history if we're not doomed to repeat it. So Holodomor education, frankly, is civic education. It's democratic education. It's human rights education. So we believe it's important. Today we're making the announcement. The work will begin. It has already begun in the ministry to revise the curriculum. And of course, I'd be open to feedback from educators on how to find that graceful balance. But we want to dedicate time to this. I want kids to really understand that just in the century before, for our parents or grandparents, great-grandparents, for some of these kids, that this happened, and that being bystanders could lead to the death of millions of innocent people. So we're going to strengthen this, as we've done with Holocaust education, to demonstrate to people in this country that we're going to stand up for democratic values, and we're going to ensure kids are well educated to never be bystanders in the face of hate.
And just moving away for a moment from today's announcement, but something that affects this school and a lot of other schools, I'm wondering if you can give us an update on OECTA talks and the French School Board as well?
For sure. So we are very pleased that last week we landed a deal with the Elementary Teachers Federation. That's 950,000 elementary kids. That's a huge achievement when it comes to providing stability, but I want stability for every child, including our Catholic and our French schools. And so we have good faith discussions with all the parties. We're hoping we can move them along much quicker. We want to see results. We want to see kids in school, and we frankly want to provide a sense of predictability for the staff in our Catholic and French schools, but also for their parents who've been through a lot the last few years. So productive discussions. I'm hoping that we can move them along and expedite them because I think we can provide stability for all families in Ontario, keep their kids in schools, we go back to basics, and really emphasize those foundational knowledge of reading, writing, and math and STEM education that our government is hyper-focused on for the coming year. Okay.
Thank you. This concludes our press conference. Thank you very much for joining us here today.
Thank you. Thank you all.